Hello, I'm Emma Seppälä. I'm a psychologist, a research scientist, and a best-selling author. I work at the Yale School of Management and have the pleasure of leading this podcast on sovereignty, the science of sovereignty. What does it mean? You know, we live in this time and age where things are so chaotic. And really, the one thing we can hold on to is our inner sovereignty, our ability to find that peace, that calm, and also that empowerment, no matter what's going on. Every 2 weeks, I talk to really inspiring people about how we can develop more inner sovereignty and how we can thrive even in the most challenging of times. So this week, I'm talking to Lucia Todd and Etelle Higonnet, both of whom are human rights lawyers, entrepreneurs, change makers, incredible humans. Lucia Todd is a lawyer, a mother. She is an entrepreneur, and she's also a PhD in well-being, the psychology of well-being. And she's really an amazing, amazing human, as you'll see. And Etelle Higonnet and I go back to our college days. She's also a human rights and environmental lawyer. She's absolutely incredible. If you've read my book, Sovereign, you read the story of how she talked her hitman out of killing her and, in fact, protecting her. She's beyond amazing. She has been knighted by the government of France for her really innovative and amazing environmental activism that has led to many chocolate companies, rubber companies, ending their deforestation and child labor practices. She's done this more or less on her own. She's incredible. So here we go. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
But being sovereign is about taking responsibility and being accountable for the things we feel and do, and being the best version of ourselves with that.
There's all these layers that we wear about expectations of society, terrible self-doubt. When I read Sovereignty, it was about ripping off all those bad layers.
During these last years, I have been working so hard on myself, putting so much pressure on me, and it became in that process that I wasn't being the best version of myself because I was precisely being so hard on myself.
One of the best things in my journey towards sovereignty has been sisters, lovely ladies that lift me up around the world. There is a real beauty to compassion and sisterhood.
Etelle and Lucia, you are two of the people that I love most in this world, and you both are such amazing leaders. And I want to hear from you about sovereignty because it's something that you both live and breathe. And as we were just talking about before, it's also a challenge. And yet, when you can own your sovereignty, there's almost nothing that you can't accomplish, as both of you have actually shown. So I just want to start with just a question: is like, what is sovereignty to you? So. Does either one of you want to start?
I'll go ahead. Okay, go. Well, actually, for me, it was a difficult term to get used to at the beginning because, I think being from Mexico, the term sovereign, and I am a lawyer also, even though I have like all these studies in happiness in teenagers, but it was difficult for me to pass that term into my personal, feeling of how it felt. But as I started reading your book and as I advanced into it, all of a sudden I was like saying the term the whole time. Like I felt it so much. And for me, and I have questions for you too, Emma, in a sense that at the beginning, I was like, okay, so I realized that in order to be sovereign, it's like, in a sense, it's to be free and it's to be responsible. And it's to feel what we are, which is like perfect beings in a life that we are in the process of learning and being the best version of ourselves. But being sovereign is about taking responsibility and being accountable for the things we feel and do, and being the best version of ourselves with that. Once we can feel that. But for me, it's very much aligned with being authentic, I guess, because authenticity is so hard in many ways because of social circumstances or because of where we live or what we do or the different stages in life. When you're a teenager, it's difficult. When you're just getting married, it's difficult. When you have kids, when you're a mother, it's difficult. So I think that it's the process of finding that, finding yourself, like getting to know yourself. And then once you get familiar with that, then it's like claiming like that power that we all have, that we all have the right to have, and to feel that best version of ourselves, I guess. But I'm sure Etelle is gonna tell us another beautiful way of interpreting it, like better than I do.
No, not better at all. Actually, I just loved some of the stuff that you said, Lucia, about authenticity and being your best self. Because after I read Emma's book, I also felt like, there's all these layers that we wear about expectations of society and these crazy expectations we put on ourselves and these terrible self-doubts about our body or about whatever, insecurities we've accumulated, like little onion and unhappiness and inauthenticity. And I felt like when I read Sovereignty, it was about ripping off all those bad layers and freeing myself layer after layer after layer in this kind of journey of self-expression and authenticity and recapturing my inner power. And even though I have done therapy and Emma's been my bodhisattva for a long time, and I've done breathing and meditation on and off for many years, thanks to Emma, I could not help but realize when I read the book that I had just allowed so many bad layers to creep in and hide my light, and that in order to really shine bright, I had to kind of rip off all these things, which I think, Lucia, goes to what you're saying about inauthenticity and performing for others and not really listening to yourself, and therefore also not being yourself, because you sort of tune yourself out. You're like, I can't hear you, la 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 la, and I'm going to listen to other people.
And it reminds me also, in a sense, when you were a kid, when I was a kid, I used to, I played a lot. And it reminded me of these times when I used to play with my little brother. And it feels so regal, so royal, like to be responsible for yourself and to be free and to be, like, it feels really empowered also. Like, I'm talking about what it, viscerally how it made me feel, like the term sovereign, like I am a sovereign being, like every time you would say it. And then I also downloaded the audio with Emma's beautiful voice. and it's amazing because she's like really like she connects a lot to what she's saying. And I was like, yeah, like, like it's also like an emotion, I guess. And you were able to do that, Emma, with your readers, and at least with me. And I think that is amazing, like making us realize that we have the power to become that best version of ourselves, but taking responsibility for a lot of the things that, that we play a part in. And I realized also it's like the opposite of being a victim, which is very, especially nowadays, the line is so thin when we feel like victims a lot. It happens to me, at least at home, like, I'll be having like a fight with my husband about like, I am here with the kids and this and that, and you're out, you go all day, and then you come home and I want you to, help me at night or whatever. And then I'm like, wait, this is that, like, that's the opposite of sovereign, like I'm still in the process of like, embracing it, which is really, really fun and amazing to share with both of you. So, yeah.
I love what you both shared. Thank you so much. And yeah, sovereignty is definitely a journey, it feels. I mean, even for me, I really feel like the book came to me and I wrote it as it was meant to be written. And as I was writing it, I was also going through it and learning and still learning about what it means to reclaim our sovereignty. And actually this weekend I was talking to a videographer, and he was saying how when he interviews people, he's trying to reach their real self, right? And he says there's all this, like you said, performance or whatever it is. And then he says, every now and then you see a glimmer in someone's eye. You're like, oh, I could see like the little boy behind the CEO or like the actual person. But, and I was teaching a workshop where he was too. And I saw, sometimes it just feels like there are, like Etelle, you were saying, so many layers. And it's like you're trying to find the real person, the flame, like kids are like all flame. They're like the full blossom of themselves all the time. And what happened to adults? Like the kids are full of enthusiasm, full of life, full of everything. And the adults, it's like, what happened?
But what you realize, like sovereignty is like you said, unpeeling all those layers until that flame still shines bright in the adult, and they can show up in their fullest potential, you know. And I feel like you both show up very much in your fullest potential. That's very much part of who you are, your mission as leaders, in what you're doing. And I'd love to, just hear a little bit more about your journey, like, where you feel you were before and where you are now with regards to sovereignty.
I can share a little something recently. I read your book, Emma, and it just set off all these fireworks in my mind and really put me back on this journey to empowerment and self-expression and authenticity and sovereignty. And then recently, since I'm an environmental activist, I experienced this depression and setback. There's this beautiful law that it helped a lot to move along through the European system. It's a law that basically aims to try to save global forests, which are like the lungs of the planet. We need them. Forests are amazing. We should not let them go without trying our best to protect every beautiful bit that's left. And so there's this amazing European law, the European Deforestation Regulation, that does just that. It really tries to save global forests. And there was an attempt by a right-wing political party called the EPP to destroy the law, to amend and completely water it down and basically ruin it. All these years of efforts and team building and coalition building and getting millions of people to sign hundreds of petitions and phone calls. You cannot imagine getting these laws passed is a really hard sort of mountain to climb. It's like a Mount Everest. And watching Mount Everest just kind of melt was terrifying, and I didn't feel very sovereign. I felt like a victim, like we were saying, Lucia. We sort of sink back into this victimhood. I felt afraid, I felt angry, I felt like a victim, I felt like I didn't have agency. And then some amazing activists in Brussels rallied the troops, including me, and I could see their sovereignty shining, and it just rekindled my light. And it was beautiful because within days, all these environmental activists all over the world, all over Europe, but even globally, started to respond and rally. And I think it's safe to say, between responsible businesses that spoke out to save the law in the nick of time and all these NGOs and some really great parliamentarians and folks in the EU system, the law's been saved. Today we found out the great news. And it just reminded me, hope over despair, action over passivity, empowerment over feeling like a victim. No matter how crazy or bad or weird or messed up a situation is, how you show up is your choice. And I think your book, Emma, it's just like this reminder, but as you said, it's a journey and we forget, and these things happen that get us off track and we have to come back onto the path. But I think when we really hear and listen to that call, it helps us be our best self, and then great things can happen.
I love that you shared that. And I love that one person who was maintaining his sovereignty, and he was maintaining his spirit, and his flame was still shining bright and high, he could rekindle that in everyone. And sovereignty is catching. So is pessimism. So is hopelessness. And that's, oftentimes what we're seeing in the media, what people are sharing, that actually brings you down and it disempowers. Whereas maintaining your sovereignty allows you to think clearly. That this guy had obviously an inspiration, and he made it happen. And yeah, I love that. Lucia, do you want to share?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it, though. I think for me it has been like a journey. It's like you named the journey that I have been going through for such a long time. I have been, I lived abroad, and I was part of giving a lot of opportunities as I felt coming back after living abroad so many years, coming back to my country. And then, I've always been in this constant search for like this best version of myself. I have my father passed away last year, and he was a very important, it's always about parents, being important, but my father was like, his personality was very strong, like for all my brothers and sisters and for our community. And he did so much. So growing up with this type of figure that did so much in his like I kept on comparing myself to him. When he was 35, 36, he was already like the dean of a big university, and he did like more than 18 different careers in his time. And when I went through that age, like I went through like the teenagers where I thought I could, save the world and do so many things. And then I studied, and then I got married, and then I started having a hard time having children, which lasted for like about 8 years, where I was always like playing, in a sense, the victim because I couldn't get pregnant. I was like, why is the world so unfair if I want to be a mother? I went through all that. And in that process of getting to know myself and the strength and getting to like get a hold of my emotions, I guess. And then after that, I had my kids, and then it was, all about my kids, but I still wanted to feel like I had so much to bring to my country, or to bring to my, to the people that I'm around with. So I wanted to do more and more and more. And there was always this like shadow of, I guess, everything that my dad accomplished. And finally, during these last years, I have been working so hard on myself. Like there is not like there's a course I'll go, like meditation, I'll be there, like a book about self-help, anything, like I'll read inspiring stories. And I was in this constant, like putting so much pressure on me. And it became in that process that I wasn't being the best version of myself, because I was precisely being so hard on myself. And in the book, Emma, you mentioned several times about how we speak to ourselves. And it gets me very emotional, because I have noticed it with my kids. Like I have 3 kids, and I have a 10-year-old, and she's so hard on herself. And it just like, it breaks me that I'm like, oh my God, this is, and people say like, oh my God, she's such a little mini you. And I'm like, oh, like it breaks my heart even the more, because I know that I have been so hard on myself through this process of trying to be the best version of myself. But I for some reason, I guess you start learning with age, I guess, and with experiences, and with for me, it's important to mention that every time I have had a hard experience, either personal or, with my kids, and Emma knows a lot of my stories, like my first baby, I had a really hard time getting pregnant. Then he was born, and he died immediately. And I had a really hard time getting through that. And then I had 3 kids, and all of them are preemies. One of them was in the hospital for 3 months, and I had to like be there for her. And there was always this sense of like like, why is the world unfair? But then I practiced a lot of gratitude, and then it was like, but I am so like, I was like, in like a bipolar place where I was like giving thanks for all the blessings, but at the same time, like, so all of this process that has been going on, and it feels like finally I get to see like a little bit of the light. I don't pretend to be wise at all, and I still have a lot to learn. But I think that I start to understand when you speak, Emma, about your research, and when you talk about happiness and gratitude and what it means. And I brought up my father because we presented his book, his last book, a couple of weeks ago, and he speaks about the last part of his life. And it was so amazing for me to see that when he's talking about the last part of his life, he says, he doesn't talk about everything he did, but he starts thanking all the people that were part of the things that he was able to have an impact on. And you speak when you wrote the book, there's a part where you talk a lot about the different types of happiness, and how doing things that are for others rather than for self, like Etelle, what you're doing, in a sense there's a lot of love going there for your world, and for every person because we need people like you to do this, and I think that's for me like the process that I'm going through, like really learning all these little like tips of how to become that best version of myself. So I get that, like reading my father and saying how he had, giving credit to all the people that helped him have an impact. Maybe he's the one that everybody says he got, he did all these things. But he says, no, it's not me. It was the circumstances, and it was this other person, and it was this person that gave me a hard time, which made me know myself better. And and the way he starts like you know, intertwining everything is so beautiful because you have, at your young age, Emma, you have been able to like do this like this braid, you know, you braided all these things, and it's been, I guess I am in the process of continuing to know myself and to try to be the best version of myself, and now I see it as a beautiful process, not like a painful one, but you know, I feel more empowered and with more tools to be able to do it. And I think it's amazing that we have so many tools nowadays and so many people to, you know, to admire, like you, Etelle, with, you know, what you've gone through. So I don't know. I think that we are very, I feel very grateful for having all these stories and all this inspiration and all these people around me, and how the world gets you to be in the places with the right people at the right times. And I just sincerely like want everybody to read Emma's book. So we translated it in Spanish, and we want the whole Latin world to to be able to have these tools, and to be able to have these tools to get to know themselves and get familiar with the term and with the feeling of sovereignty, you know. I hope my English is not too weird because I don't speak English often anymore.
Lucia, your English is beautiful, and you know what you don't realize. I mean, Lucia is an influencer in Spanish on her Instagram and has hundreds of thousands of followers that she is always sharing wisdom with every day. You are a wisdom teacher right now, Lucia, sharing what you've learned, and that is just so beautiful. You know how you're helping others as well. In fact, yeah, Ito, did you want to respond something?
I just thought that
No,
was
no.
so beautiful what you said, Lucia. And I shared, you know, when I heard your story about the trouble with getting pregnant, I just, part of me just wanted to wrap you up in a giant warm hug. As we also had with my family, I had 6 miscarriages, and so I know this terrible pain. And you're so right that it can bring you to a very dark place where you feel the opposite of sovereign. You feel ground down and beaten down by life. And I just wish I could give you a besito and come hug you. But I just I couldn't let that go without saying love, lots of love.
No, thank you. But you know, after living that, I'm sure you know now. Every you know, with time, you get to see like now everything that you live or you go through. Um, it makes you understand, not intellectually, but like feel different about experiences and about who you are.
Yes.
So yeah, you can't, you know, you can't live like every hard moment. And now I have a lot of, I have to be careful with that because I keep on saying like, you know, different difficult moments make us know ourselves better. But I don't want to send the universe the wrong message. Like, you don't have to send me any
No, no,
more of
no,
those.
no,
Like,
no, no, you're
I'm
not
okay.
Good.
But
But
you know,
it's
this
true. I
reminds
mean, if
me,
someone
Lucia,
is, uh-huh,
this
you were
reminds me,
saying.
there's a beautiful poem from a medieval Persian poet named Rumi who speaks to exactly what you were saying. He says, you know, when you're heartbroken, hold on to the pain because the place where you're broken is where the light enters you.
Oh, I love it. I love Rumi. Thank you.
So true. And you know, you both have gone through such a journey, and you are showing up with so much wisdom, so much compassion. And Itel, I remember when you and I were in college, and you were an activist then too, but you were a different kind of activist. You were kind of like a pissed off activist, and you were getting
Ooh.
stuff done, right? Is that accurate to say?
I think that's true.
Okay.
I was very angry when I was younger. I was so shocked at the injustice that I discovered as a teenager and young person. And I think you're right that I was at when I started my career, it was really from a place of shock and anger more
Yeah.
than love.
Well, and then what happened was that well, I think it was shortly after our car accident that we had together, right? You shifted your messaging to be this activism of hope, and I feel like you just pulled and attracted all the opportunities that you got to just make a difference, because the other kind of activism may have pushed some people away, but like you've just gravitated so many people towards you and together to effectuate change the way you have with the activism that you've done, which has been amazing. And it's given you so much sovereignty, but it's been grounded in this sovereignty in terms of carrying out your visions single-handedly, bringing large companies to their knees on issues of deforestation, on issues of human slavery by yourself. Because you're able to like use that brilliant mind to be like, this is what I'm going to do. And if they're not going to follow through, then this is what I'm going to do. And then finally, they come to you and are like, okay, we're ready. We're going to save the trees. But so amazing, you know, to have that level of sovereignty. And you know, oftentimes people will be like, well, I'm this one person, like, what can I do? I mean, I can't make a difference. Oh, really? Meet my friends. You know what I mean? meet Etelle and Lucia. Like, and it just goes to show, like, when you do, like, when you fully embrace your sovereignty, who knows what anybody's potential is? You know, and my goal is always like, if every child grows up sovereign and fully blossomed in who they are with their flame going strong, like even as adults, watch out, world. Like, we're going to save this planet. And, you know, and I know we're all parents, and so that's our hope also for our children, but is that they grow up feeling that sovereignty, you know. And I've actually started telling my kids, you know, if they're scared or whatever at night before going to sleep, like, I want you to say, I am sovereign. I am sovereign. Like, nothing can touch you, you know, like, yeah, of course they're learning Taekwondo and they're learning to be street smart and all that. But like this idea of like, stand strong, stand tall, you know, you deserve.
I love that with kids. It's beautiful. This morning I was talking to my young girl. My husband was trying to hug her, and she said, I don't want to. Like, I don't want you to hug me. Like, I'm angry right now. And he was like, no, but hold on. Like, he was really trying, you know, and because I have all the children's rights issues in my head, like I knew that wasn't the right way to do it, but I didn't, you know, you're in a difficult spot because you don't want to, you know, contradict the husband who's trying to hug the daughter. But then I spoke to my daughter and I was telling her, like, sweetie, when you can stand up before your parents and say what you feel and what you want and don't want, that's important. And I think that we have to listen to you when you say, I don't want to be hugged right now. And if you think that's correct, let's talk to dad about it, you know. But in the sense that that's teaching them at that age to trust, you know, that when they don't feel comfortable with a situation, if they can tell their dad or their mom, this figure of authority, stop, I don't want to do this, and they can tell anybody. And that's, you know, reclaiming their power over self, you know. So yeah, and once you read your book, everything you see, like in these little examples, I keep on seeing sovereignty, you know, like I keep on seeing like, oh, so this is a little bit of, like, this is how I can teach her. This is how, and you also reflect in our kids are such great, like they're the best teachers in the world for us, I guess, for moms. But you can see how you can see yourself in that little girl, you know, and now how many things that we do because we don't know how to say, I don't want this, I don't like it, or, you know, and not just in the sense of a hug, but even of anything that we do, you know, how much of our lives are dictated by outside rules or by outside, you know, things that we have to follow, or what are they going to say, or how is it going to affect this or that. And this, you know, that's why I was talking about authenticity, because it's so important to know ourselves. And you promote a lot of meditation, Emma. And for me, it is I am like, I don't know if I'm a Gemini or a Taurus. I don't know. Because they say that I am very active with my head. They used to say I was a Gemini, but then Vedic astrology says I'm a Taurus. I don't know what I am. I just know that my head is like that all the time. There's like a mouse inside going back and forth. And it's so difficult because you promote a lot of meditation, and I can see it, tell that you meditate, just the way that you, like, you know, the way you talk. It's like you're talking and I'm like, oh, this is delicious, like her voice, her energy, beautiful. But it's so important to get to, you know, to give ourselves those moments of silence to really like touch back base, because nowadays we are bombarded with all this information all the time, what to do, what not to do, what, even like I was talking about the supplements I'm taking. I was like taking 30 supplements. I said no more. Like, I'm just gonna take like my, like my good hydration, and that's it. I'm done with it, like for a little while, because sometimes we're just overwhelmed, and it's so important to have those moments of, I don't know, of silence, of really touching base back with ourselves. And that's something that you also promote a lot in order to become sovereign, to have those silent, those silent moments with ourselves. And I don't think we do that much anymore, at least I have a hard time doing it. So yeah, that's another thing that I think it's important that you mention a lot, Emma, and I love it.
I love that,
I
Lucia.
love what you both just said about sovereignty as a mom, and it reminds me of something you said earlier, Emma, that sovereignty is catching. And I did all this thinking when I was reading your book about how I want to not only be more sovereign and pursue my journey for myself, but also I want to model it for my child. Lucia, when you were talking about your daughter, I was like, oh yes, I hear you, I totally am here. I'm with you. Because, one of the most important things as a parent is, of course, that your child should be happy. And I think you're right, Lucia, we get like so bombarded with, do this, don't do that. Your kid has to do this activity and go to these schools and do these tests and win these accolades and achieve these achievements. And I think you're right that in modern life, it's just really hard to create that time and space for your child as they grow up and become a teenager and a young adult to meditate and to not feel the pressure to, this peer pressure to get fake eyelashes and everything else that teenagers seem to be peer pressured into doing, this horrible body dysmorphia that all these teenage girls feel, and all these ways that social media creates this endless drumbeat of pressure on young people to be somebody that they're not necessarily fully comfortable with being. And that drumbeat drowns out the sound of their own true authentic self and desires. It's very hard as a parent to protect your child from certain things, but also to empower them. And I think, we have to.
And the guilt.
Sovereignty is catching. If we can do it and model it for our kids, that helps.
Because then we, as mothers, I don't know, I have talked to many mothers about this. And well, for me, I have issues with guilt. Like, I have always had issues with guilt in different stages of my life. Even at, like, I love the scene where you talk about the pizza eating, Emma, where you would cry afterwards, and then she did like this simple, going back after meditation, and you were like, I'll just cry before, and then you didn't have the craving for the pizza, and it's a little bit like that, I guess. It's like the guilt that comes with what we do that we know is. It's like we marry these things and then we find comfort in feeling bad. It's like the comfort you find in feeling angry. I feel so comfortable when I'm angry. It's ridiculous. It's like horrible. I feel like, I feel empowered, but in a really bad way. And then I feel guilt. It's like this whole thing going on that is just horrible, this cycle. And as mothers, for me, I am always feeling a little bit like, insecure, and going back, and then you also speak about this. You speak about intuition, which is exactly that. It's like, wait, why am I feeling guilt about something? Let me go back, give myself some space. Why am I feeling this? What's behind it? Why am I having such a reaction to whatever situation, and analyze it from, the perspective of your inner child, and okay, or why do I feel this is necessary? And so you talk about everything, Emma. That's like a nowadays Bible for for humans, and And yeah, when children, they really trigger us. They're like, that's why I was saying they're the best teachers. At different stages, before, I guess when I was a teenager or a young adult, I guess that who would trigger me the most was probably like the boyfriends, or the like relationships you were in. But that you can get out of, back and forth. But once you're a mother, it's like, it's there for, forever. And it really brings all these, feelings and insecurities and the inner hurt child in us. And so going back to the term, it's the sense of like reminding ourselves that we were born sovereign. And I love that you say that, Emma. It's not, that's why when I was doing the translation to Spanish, they had translated to like, in Spanish it said reclama, as if it felt like you had to go to tell someone, give me back my sovereignty. And I was like, it's not reclama, it's recupera, It's like what is rightfully mine. Like, I am sovereign. I just need to remind myself, and I need to get to know myself and live the process. And yeah, it's, for me, I'm still in the process, and I think we're gonna need like extra cliff notes and guides and stuff. Make sure we get the very best of it.
So amazing. I love what you said about kids. The other day I was talking to a teenager, and he's been meditating since he was 8. And I said, so do you feel kind of different from the other teenagers? And he said, yeah. He's like, they want like big car, big house, big this, and I'm kind of see through it. I'm like, not really into it. And I was like, what are you interested in? He's like, I'm just curious. I just like want to do, like, he's really curious about science and different things. He's motivated by curiosity as opposed to these external things, because he already sees through them at 16 years old, and that's, talk about sovereignty, talk about sovereignty. And I want to bring up one thing, Etelle, you've shared with me how, you've shared with me in the past, like when you go and speak to a big company about their deforestation, you've said to me before, like, Emma, you wouldn't really like me on those days because you go in and lay down the law. But that is so sovereign as a one-woman lawyer going and speaking to this entire legal council of big companies, who I won't name the companies, but that is such a moment of sovereignty, and you go in there. And you want to share just a little bit about that?
Yeah, I should say none of that would be possible without teams of wonderful people working all over the world, allies and colleagues and things. So it's usually not a totally solo endeavor, but I found that over time there are some activists who are too angry to really work towards finding solutions or moving their targets. They get so embedded in the rage and the resentment at the injustice and the pollution and the deforestation and the slavery and things that really do elicit, that trigger these responses. Lucia, you talked about being triggered. I think, people get so triggered, and it's legitimate. But there's this whole path of activism that ends up then not really coming to fruition or yielding great results because it's so antagonistic that it's not able to capitalize on moments of negotiation and solutions. And then there's other people, many well-resourced organizations and many people in this other strand of activism that's not confrontational at all. And they just sort of go along with big companies and work with big companies whenever big companies are willing to do some sustainability pilot or a project. Those people almost never create system change. They'll create these small pilots usually, right? And so I would say one pathway is too soft, and one pathway is almost too hard. And the kind of activism that I've tried to channel is to be extremely tough when you have to be, but also always try to understand where the other side is coming from, to talk to them, to keep an open, true discussion that is authentic, where you really always tell them what you want them to do, and you really listen to them telling you what they think they can and can't change. And it's a mix of understanding and compassion and trying to see it from their side and even help them think creatively about what they can do to change, with this very tough approach of, you really can't cut down these forests. You really just can't dump toxic waste into rivers. You cannot enslave people. You cannot make children in your supply chain work and drop out of school. That's totally inhumane and wrong and illegal. And so finding that balance between toughness and compassion is a place that's difficult to inhabit, but it's a place I try to inhabit. And your book, it really reminded me of the importance of being true to your own self and being strong with your own values when they're violated by polluters or human rights abusers. But it also reminded me about compassion, about understanding where other people are coming from. And, Emma, you're kind of a bodhisattva. You radiate this enlightenment for other people. There's a reason why when I was recently quite sad, I called you and wrote you and I was like, Emma, I need to meditate with you, please. And there's a reason why I think the person you were alluding to earlier, who sort of is at the core, or a team of people who are at the core of saving that European law for forests, they sort of radiated this sovereignty and positivity and hope and action and got this whole team up and running, even though many of us were sort of in doom and gloom mode. And I don't think you can be that radiant star, that brightness that shines in the darkness for others, if you aren't true to your values and strong, which sometimes means being very tough, but if you don't also have that compassion.
Yeah. It's a beautiful note.
It's beautiful, Etelle. I am in admiration for you because it must be hard. Yeah. I can imagine that you would want to do it, but actually doing it, like practicing compassion in the moment, I know how hard that can be when you're engaged in the situation, if you're passionate about what you do, as I know you are.
I fail so often. I fail many more times than I succeed. So it's just a work in progress.
You have the present, and you're that's what it's about. All the time, going back to and it's beautiful what you do. I am in awe. Seriously, congratulations.
I fail so often. It's just a work in progress, but it's like the North Star that you can.
Yeah, we try.
Etelle was just named a knight by the government of France, so I don't think you failed that often, actually. She got the yeah. So this is a beautiful note to end on compassion. Thank you both so much for this.
Thank you both. I feel actually that one of the best things in my journey towards sovereignty has been sisters, lovely ladies that lift me up around the world. Some of them are people that I just cross only the one time, and there's just that special spark, that moment. And some are heart sisters that have been with me through thick and thin for decades. But somehow I think that there's a real beauty to compassion and sisterhood.
Yeah. Uplifting each other, right?
If you enjoyed this conversation, check out my book, Sovereign: Reclaim Your Freedom, Energy, and Power in a Time of Distraction, Uncertainty, and Chaos, which is pretty much the times we live in. And also go ahead and subscribe and stay tuned. Every 2 weeks, we're going to release another episode. If you're interested in being on the podcast, shoot us an email. Reach out to us on my website, www.iamsov.com. And also go ahead and do the sovereignty test that's on the website. Check it out. There's tons of resources for you. We're here to help you on your sovereignty journey. All the best.